we looked at who are internal influencers. We knew we had people, they're not just marketing people, they're from every area of the organization and every level and every region. We were very intentional about getting this diverse set of employees that had really influence and kind of tentacles into the rest of the organization. And we chose a group of about, I would say it was around 20, 25 employees, and brought them together as kind of this champions group that we would work with throughout the process. So they were involved in, from the ground up, just messaging of how we were going to take things to market, how we might change, pressure testing that. We talked with them about how we were going to roll it out. They had previews into everything, because what we wanted is when we released and came to market, we already had this set of employees that was bought in, that liked it. And, people talk about brand champion programs, ambassador, that's basically what it was. And it worked really well.
Welcome to the Internal Marketing Podcast, a unique podcast series where we flip the marketing conversation from external to internal, exploring all the ways that you can build the brand and drive growth by engaging and empowering company employees to become powerful advocates of the brand. I'm your host, Kerry-Ann Stimson, and I'm very happy to be bringing you this episode where we'll be showcasing another internal marketing case story, as I like to call it. And for this case story, we'll be shining a spotlight on global customer engagement leader Verint and how they leverage internal marketing to their employees to help them be better at external customer engagement. But before we get started, it's unnecessarily difficult to make an external marketing tool work for internal communications. The email templates, distribution lists, analytics, tools, and integrations just don't make any sense. Workshop is an internal email platform built exclusively for employee communications, and it gives you a one-stop shop where you can quickly create, send, and measure beautifully branded internal emails and messages. It even automatically syncs with your company's HR data, so you know your list will always automatically be up to date. Check out useworkshop.com/marketing to learn more and to see a short demo. And of course, Workshop is the global sponsor of Season 3 of the Internal Marketing Podcast. Thank you, Workshop. I'm happy to have you on board. So let's jump into this conversation with my featured guest, Celia Fleischaker. Now, Celia is the CMO at Verint, and they have a great internal marketing and engagement program in place, which strengthens their ability to do what they do best, which is external customer engagement. She'll be sharing about how and why this internal marketing and engagement program works for them, and I'm sure you'll come away with some great takeaways and ideas that you can use in your company. Hi, Celia. Welcome to the Internal Marketing Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here today. How are you doing?
I'm great, Kerry-Ann. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. Well, I'm excited about this conversation, as I like to tell my listeners every single time we do these case story episodes. It's always extra exciting for me because, yes, the subject matter episodes are great because they give us the rudiments in how to do all things internal marketing and employee advocacy. But when we get to talk to persons like you, individuals like you, who can tell us exactly how it's playing out in their particular companies, I think it's an extra rich opportunity to be able to dig into what that looks like in a practical sense, so that folks who are listening, they get the opportunity to see, well, if it's working in your company, then there's a great likelihood that it's going to be working in mine. So I'm very, very excited. But the first thing is, Celia, I have an international audience of listeners from right across the world, and I don't want to assume that everybody knows who Verint is or what you guys do. So let's start from there. Who is Verint? What do you guys do? And what's your purpose, your why as an organization?
Yeah, I would love it if your whole audience already knew who you are. My job would be done. So Verint is a global company. We've been around for a number of years, and we're the customer engagement company. And so if you think about what we do from a technology perspective, we're all about connecting a company with their consumers. So a customer of ours, say it might be a large credit card organization. And if you think about you call them to ask about a charge on your card, or you might get on their website and chat with them or go through messaging like WhatsApp to talk with them. We're the technology behind that, helping you engage with those customers, helping you connect those experiences with the goal of really delivering a differentiated, better experience for your end consumer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So that gets everybody on the same page. So in terms of what you do, which you would have shared, would you say that as an organization, there's a deeper purpose or why as to what drives you or what motivates you every day, why you exist?
Yeah, it's about connectivity or connectedness. And if I think about it, a great example, one of our customers makes cookware, right? And during the pandemic, everyone became a home chef. So they were getting a crazy amount of calls into their contact center asking for help on how to use different pieces of equipment, and their response times were in the number of days, right? And they saw them spike so high. And if you're cooking dinner, hearing back the following week is not a good thing. So they actually, working with us, working with how they would engage more effectively, got it down to number of minutes. That why, yes, we work with billions of interactions the consumers have with these brands. But if you bring it down to that personal level, just so you can get dinner on the table or accomplish your travel or whatever, that's the why. It's getting people connected so they can get what they need to get done.
Thank you. So it's the technology piece, the actual act of creating the connection, but allowing that why of connectivity, of bringing people together is a great driver. And as we talk about communicating our why, that's actually a key part of internal marketing. So internal marketing at the heart of it is about engaging our employees in a way that not only helps them to be better equipped to deliver on the brand promise to the customer, but it also helps them to become advocates of the brand, advocates to either your external customer or even advocates, if we're talking about employer branding, they can be advocates to prospective employees who are looking at Verint as a possible employer of choice. So when we talk about internal marketing, again, at the heart of it is employee engagement. And I'd love to get a sense from you, what would have driven Verint to consider employee engagement at such a deep level? Because not many companies do it. Unfortunately, there are some companies who make the grand assumption that, oh, you work here and you get a paycheck, so you got to do what you got to do. But you have taken it a step farther than that, and you're looking at, and you have been engaging your employees on a very deep level into your purpose. What was the catalyst that caused you guys to engage your employees in that way?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I love that you do this conversation and podcast, because I think that internal side of marketing has had a bit of a renaissance, and it's its time, which is great. I've been at Verint for a couple of years. We've been around for a couple of decades. So this is something that the organization's kind of focused itself on, and caring about employees and that experience and what it can bring to the organization for a while. I'd say the catalyst in the last couple of years was we did a spinoff of a major division. So we had a $500 million division that was a little bit different than what we did in the other division. It was a cybersecurity division. And then the $800 or $900 million organization that was left after that spinoff was wholly focused on customer engagement. And so we took the opportunity when we were doing the spin and we were redefining the go forward organization. We looked at it not only in terms of what it meant for our customers and our partners with that change, is we started with our employees, because our feeling was to do this successfully, it's not only an external exercise. This is an opportunity to get our employees excited about our go forward mission, that to bring them along. And so we wanted to, it was kind of an employee first proposition for us. Yes, we're doing this spin. Yes, we end up with this pure play customer engagement company. Let's start with the employees and bring them along with us on this journey, because they're, whether we succeed or not is going to be largely up to our employees.
I'm so happy and excited when I hear company leadership thinking like that. And could you share with us and give us a sneak peek into tactically what does that look like? I mean, what are some of the things that you guys do to engage employees just practically on the ground, day to day, week to week?
Yeah, so we started out because there were some pretty significant changes in how we were going to go to market. We have about 4,500 employees, and it doesn't matter what size you are, the same process can be applied. So we looked at who are internal influencers. We knew we had people, they're not just marketing people, they're from every area of the organization and every level and every region. We were very intentional about getting this diverse set of employees that had really influence and kind of tentacles into the rest of the organization. And we chose a group of about, I would say it was around 20, 25 employees, and brought them together as kind of this champions group that we would work with throughout the process. So they were involved in, from the ground up, just messaging of how we were going to take things to market, how we might change, pressure testing that. We talked with them about how we were going to roll it out. They had previews into everything, because what we wanted is when we released and came to market, we already had this set of employees that was bought in, that liked it, that were championing it. And, people talk about brand champion programs, that's basically what it was. And it worked really well. And so we worked with them. And then we were really intentional about our coming out was, our year starts Feb 1. So February 1st of 2021. And so in that month leading up, there was gamification that we did to get people involved. We did a series of communications. We did video, just really worked at kind of building a drumbeat of communication and information that we could share first with that group, but then more broadly with employees, and kind of fanned it out and built it from there.
I love that. And I love the idea of gamification too. And when you mentioned it, that got me excited, because I know that kind of interactivity is also always very engaging. I wanted to shift a little bit. So we've spoke a little bit about the engagement piece, of which is what internal marketing really is. But the outcome or the objective of internal marketing, or one of the key objectives, is turning our employees into advocates externally. And employee advocacy seems to be picking up quite a bit of steam. I've been seeing some statistics that say coming up in 2023. Now we're recording this episode in late 2022. But in 2023, about 80% of companies who engage, especially in the B2B marketing space, plan to invest more in employee advocacy as a way to build the brand and drive growth. But Verint, it sounds like, is one of the early adopters of employee advocacy and engaging and leveraging employees to be advocates externally. How did that even come up on your radar? I mean, as an early adopter of this kind of approach, how did that come up? How did that become something that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, and I think we've been looking at it for a while. I'd say it's still evolving. Are we totally there yet? No, we're growing and growing it. But one of the things we had done successfully for a while is we had a program for our customers that was called Elevate, and had built a community with this great group of employees that has built a community with them. Again, we're using gamification with them, with social advocacy, and we kept looking at that and we're like, golly, what a great thing for our customers. But here we are with over 4,000 employees. Why aren't we working with this full group of employees? And not just to tout and publish about Verint, but something you said at the beginning, it's about, the whole journey and how we hire and recruit and kind of externalizing our culture. That was one thing I heard over and over when I was talking to Verint when I first joined, how great the culture was. And a lot of people kept saying, if we could just externalize this and share it with people. So we knew we had the customer community and some tools around that. And so we've kind of flipped that and said, okay, we have Elevate for our customers, and we launched Elevate Inside for our employees. And so we started with the sales team, and then we've added a lot of our customer facing and marketing employees, and we're building from there. And it's a good, we use Influitive. It's a great tool for us, and it helps us so we can do challenges and that are about, yes, advocating externally, but also enabling internally about different things. If we've made an announcement or maybe we've launched a new product or something's happened in the organization that we want people to know about, we can use that as a way to get that information out. And then, of course, we use it for social advocacy as well by our employees. And it's been fun. I think we've had some really nice uptake on it, but we always want more. We want to get it to more employees. So we're working to expand it.
Great. And I know we're going to dig a little bit deeper into what Elevate Inside really is. So I'm glad you're mentioning it. I had a quick sidebar question though, before we get into that, which it sounds like based on something you said that you also see employee advocacy as a tool to build a great employer brand and to support in your recruiting activities, attracting the right talent. How does that work? I mean, how do you leverage the advocacy piece as part of your employer branding component, which of course is quite different from how you use it to engage prospective customers?
Employer brand is something we put resource behind in the last year or two and really have, and it is very much employer brand as a partnership with it. We have a great chief people officer that is, and I would say we drive employer brand together. It's certainly not anything I take credit for in marketing. And we work in partnership with HR to really look at the whole life cycle. We kind of just took steps all the way back when we first started doing this, and we're like, what is it? Why are we doing this? It's about every piece of that employee journey. So we kind of defined what that journey was, where we're seeing it. And it was what we found when we went out and talked to different regions and different pieces of the business, it was slightly different. And so making sure we understood what that journey was and what we thought we could influence along that journey and how we could kind of bring the company together around how we think about recruiting was one thing. But what we found too was, okay, well, sometimes it takes a bit of time to get that person on board. So that pre-starter phase, what do we want to talk to them about there? And once they're on in that first year, especially, we still work, a lot of us remotely. What do we need to do to get them into community quickly? How do we quickly have them feel embraced at Verint? It's been fun defining what those pieces of the journey were. What are the tools we need to make it effective? How do we drive that communication? And it's definitely evolving, but it's helpful because, in today's climate, you have to be really efficient from a recruiting perspective, and you don't want attrition. You want to keep the people that you bring into that org, and employer brand helps you do that.
I love the mention that you made of the partnership between marketing and HR, because at the end of the day, of course, it serves HR to have a strong employer brand, but marketing as the brand holders, as it were, and as the people who really understand how to build and grow a great brand. That partnership is so tremendous, so awesome. I'd love to jump in again now with Elevate Inside. I'm super excited to learn, what did you guys do to get started? What did implementation look like? Did you have any stumbling blocks, along the way?
Yeah. So I think it was kind of defining the path we wanted to take with it. Like, we didn't want to go out to everyone at once. We wanted to do some learning pilots and things. So we really phased what we wanted to do with Elevate Inside. And we took a core group of salespeople, just because it's kind of, I think it was an obvious place to start from an advocacy perspective, because the focus was largely on advocacy and enablement for this program. We ran some programs alongside it, to some incentives to get them going. And there's a leaderboard, and salespeople are very competitive. And we just started driving challenges. And I think with employee advocacy, it's easy to underestimate the amount of work that goes into the content for it. And the team was really great about planning out a full calendar of, our phase one objective is we're just going to get them excited about the community and what's possible. And then here's some simple challenges, like just get everyone following your social channels. Okay, we'll start getting them to share, and just this general gradual build with people and education, because not everyone's comfortable with social media and using it for work, or they may not want to. And so we we did some education there as well, but it's been not stumbling blocks, but definitely challenges, like a little bit of underestimation with respect, like I said, the content. And the team did a great job building that out. Making it fun was really important because I think everyone knows this. There's a lot to do in the world, and people are so overwhelmed and distracted too with you've got so much at work. There's the personal balance that you want to keep. And now you're asking someone to take this extra time to do these extra steps. And why is that worthwhile? And why does that matter? And so time explaining that this isn't just about promotion and selling more Verint, or this is about the community that you spend so much time with, making it better and bringing the right people in and growing it in the way we want to grow it. We spend so much time with our work colleagues. And if that community is just 5 or 10% more engaging and inviting and inclusive, that's a good thing for everyone.
You mentioned something about, of course, a team of people so generously and diligently creating a content schedule and the actual content that your team members, I'm assuming, can go in and pull and share. What's your position as an organization on employees who want to be advocates? They want to build their own personal brands as well on social, and they want to talk about Verint and how great it is, but they want to kind of do their own thing. They don't want to necessarily go into your content library, as awesome as it is to take content and share it. It is what it is. Some people want to do their own thing. What's Verint's take on that? Is that something that you, quote unquote, allow, permit, encourage? And if so, how do you make that work or not?
Now, my team's going to laugh at this question because I have my own account where I curate my own content, So, yeah, absolutely. I think part of being on social and creating a personal brand is it's a personal brand. And there are people that just want to reshare what we put out, but there are people that want to curate. We encourage that. And we're a public company, so there are boundaries. Use common sense. Don't disclose private company information or personal information of others. But absolutely, I think it's exactly how you described it. It's a personal brand. It's great that they can share company content, but if they want to personalize it or put their touch on it, I love that. I think it tends to get more engagement from people, and it matters more.
You and I agree on that as an organization, because you're right. It's a real thing where you want to empower your team to put their own special touch on it. It is a personal brand, and you want to encourage them to do that. There are some folks who would still push back and say, well, what about compliance concerns? That they may share things that they're not supposed to share, either from a legal perspective or regulatory perspective. How do you kind of manage that and control that? Do you have like a social media policy? Do you give training, that sort of thing?
We do. We're in the middle of updating that policy, but we have a policy, and it's evolved over the years because I think, several years ago, you would have seen social media policies that were like, unless you're a spokesperson for the company, we just don't want you posting or whatever. And now it's really changed to we want employees to share and post. There are guidelines and guardrails. We're in the process of updating some of the training around it to explain why we've changed our stance on it, why it is important for the company, for people to understand what they should post, things to stay away from. It's the compliance and privacy with respect to our customers and company information that you just always got to watch out for. Even the simple stuff about group. It sounds so easy, like I'm at an event and I want to take a picture of a group, and you just have to be conscious that people know what you're going to do with it and think through it. But I'll also, at the same time I say that, I'll say that our pictures of employee events, or we have a Next Gen program, which is we promote the work of children through nonprofits and things, and with that, that's what gets the most engagement when people see the personal on those channels.
Absolutely. So clearly, I'm loving it. I love the fact that you're empowering your team, you're embracing it, but at the same time, you're putting the guardrails in place.
Absolutely.
To protect the overall company brand and to protect everybody's interests as well. How important was leadership buy-in for Elevate Inside generally and employee advocacy, employer branding initiatives? How important was it? And the big question is about, when a lot of folks' minds is, how did you get it?
I'd say I'm really fortunate with the teams that we work with. And we've had support. I talked about the relationship with HR, our exec team, from the CEO on down, embraces the importance of the employee experience and employee advocacy. And while there's been some education, I mean, we'll get a question, well, why, right? Like why now? Why this? Why are we doing it differently? And when you start talking through it, and they're like, oh, I get it, right? It just takes, similar to what we talked about with rollout on advocacy programs, it's some education about why this matters now and why it's important to our employee population. So I've certainly had questions that I've had to answer, but once I've been able to articulate the why, great, go for it. How are we going to do it? In fact, the questions we were reviewing our second half comms strategy, and to a T, both our president and our CEO were like, can we do more? Can we do more on social media? Yeah, which I love. Like, that's not always the question you get.
That's super exciting. And you're right. I too work with a CEO who loves social and loves to see us out there. So it's great to acknowledge that you are fortunate. You do get the questions, as you say, but you do have answers. I guess my other question then would be, in as much as you got the buy-in and continue to get the buy-in, do you have to prove value at any point to what you're doing in terms of any KPIs or metrics that you have to hit or share or agree on? Because the language of the business is numbers at the end of the day, right? So what are those measures of success? What do they look like?
They're evolving, but where we're looking right now is we're looking at engagement and shares on social is one way to understand it. And longer term metrics we're looking at beyond Elevate Inside, but if I'm thinking about employer brand, is number of candidates per position when we're recruiting, the time to onboard an employee, the attrition rate, the tenure within the organizations are all things that we're looking at. Because when we talk about the why of we're doing this, is because, especially in B2B tech, right? The people that you have, the IP, the knowledge that they have is the value in the organization. And so if you can lower that attrition rate, you keep people on board longer, is so valuable. So we're watching those metrics. We know they're longer term metrics. I'll say the other thing we did, which was really eye-opening, was I hadn't seen one done here in the last few years, like heard about one when I joined, but they did a pretty extensive all-employee survey. People do these all the time, right? You do the pulse surveys or you do the all-employee, but what struck me here, which I hadn't seen done to this level, is the evaluation and analysis of the feedback and the amount of change that it has driven in the organization was really, because you always take those surveys and then you're like, do they read them? Are they doing anything with it? And it's really shaped our whole employer brand program. We have a whole Workplace Reimagined initiative that really facilities and IT has spearheaded, but it's I'd say corporate wide. A lot of change has been driven out of what employees told us, which has been nice to see.
That's always a great KPI. It's getting the feedback of the folks involved. Another question, Celia, who owns Elevate Inside? I know that ownership of employee advocacy, ownership of internal marketing is usually an interesting question because it varies from company to company. There's some people who believe that it belongs in marketing. A lot of companies seem to have it resident in the communications function, which isn't always a part of marketing, depending on your company. So at Verint, who owns it? And what are the kind of cross-functional relationships that make it work?
That's a good question. So we have the corporate communications group, in our case, is part of marketing. And Elevate, both for customers and for employees, sits inside that team. So we have an advocacy team that focuses in on that. There's a tight partnership in marketing with content and social media, definitely. And then more broadly, for employer brand. If you step back from just that advocacy piece to the branding piece, of course, we've got that HR, facilities, IT, or the kind of external partners that I think about. But Elevate program is owned inside marketing into comms function today.
Okay, great. Thank you. I love to hear the different perspectives. You started to mention earlier about keeping the velocity and the energy going with your team, your employees. How easy or difficult is it to keep them engaged and active in this program? And what are some of the things you do to keep that energy level and engagement high?
That's a great question, because I think it's got to be this roaring thunder that just keeps going. And without attention or care and feeding, it can dwindle quite a bit. So that constant new content, new information that you can share is important. We do keep the gamification, the leaderboard going. We're awarding our advocates that are doing a lot for us, and making some noise around them is very important. People also start to see, which is fun, as people start, it's so visible, social in particular, what people are doing. And you start seeing people, yes, reposting, resharing, but what you're doing, you start to see people put this personal spin on it. I think that's very engaging. People get excited about it. But really, it's, for us, has been keep the content fresh and new and exciting, because people involved in that program tend to learn about different things maybe faster than the rest of the community that may not be involved in it. And then rewarding that team, thanking them, because they are, yes, they're getting benefit, but they're helping us. They're helping Verint more broadly.
Absolutely. And when you look at Elevate Inside in particular, what are some of the things that tell you that it's working, that it's doing well?
We've been looking at a lot of metrics around it. We've certainly been looking at the inside metrics with our who's participating, how many challenges are they completing. But then externally, we've seen the reach on social media that we've achieved just in the last couple of months, even just really tick up quite a bit, and the engagement improve as well. And so we're looking at reach and engagement as avenues to drive more awareness for us. And then internally, that just those metrics around activity in the program and what they're doing. And we always look at the number of employees that we have engaged.
Great. What are some of the lessons you would say that you've learned along the way? Because you've been doing this program for a little while now. I know for anyone who is listening thinking this is something that could possibly work in their organization, but we'd love the cheat sheet, right? We'd love to know what are some of the things that that you would have encountered along the way that probably posed a challenge for you guys. And probably if you were to go back and say, hey, we would have done this differently, what are those lessons learned that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a couple different things. We talked about that initial champions group that we formed. We kind of worked along the way with the spend even prior to Elevate Inside. I think how you define that group is really important. And we had to redefine it a little bit, because it came together first for like course heavy marketing or heavy. I'm like, no, it's got to be. I don't want a bunch of VPs on this. I want people I'm looking at tenure that with the organization, where they work, how they work, what they do. And so building that core group of advocates, I think, was really a critical piece to how we move forward with things. I think we disbanded that shortly after the spin, and looking back, I think that wasn't what we should have done. I would say keeping a core group like that can help you through all of your employer branding, through all of these things as you're moving through launching Elevate Inside. Having that sounding board that's broader than maybe the core team working on it is something that we should have kept going and really leaned on harder. That's one change I would make. I think with Elevate Inside in particular, I think evolving it. So I think it's so simple with digital programs, especially where it's just, I can invite the entire company to be part of this. Or I think starting with a core group and building up the success and creating the excitement step by step versus big bang, I think is really important.
It certainly is. You mentioned earlier that you do recognize that you have employees who want to be more active on social. They want to build their personal brands. What are some of the things you do to empower them to be able to do that? I think you mentioned training earlier, perhaps. What does that training look like? And if there's anything else that you do to actually support that process for them?
Yeah, the training is pretty straightforward. We use our social media team to do it, and they can do meetings we've done lunch and learns with different groups, and I think there was one today. It's what to think about, not just on using Elevate Inside, but also more broadly teaching them about developing their own personal brand. I think is something that's very important, because I want them thinking about their personal brand before they post, right? So we're doing that training. I think we need to do more of it. And then we're sharing content with them. Seeding that content, I think, is really important, making sure they understand that they have the license to do more.
Wonderful. Celia, this has been such a great conversation, getting a peek inside what Verint is doing with Elevate Inside, getting a peek inside Elevate Inside. It's been wonderful. And of course, usually I like to end, or certainly before we close officially, I would like to ask, from your perspective, come to the question that I usually call my final nugget, which is, of everything that you would have shared today with our audience, what in your view is the key takeaway? So they would have heard so much. What's that one key takeaway you'd like our audience or listeners to come away with today?
Trust and empowerment of your employees, right? I think we talked about the hesitation and the concern of, you hired people for a reason. They're smart. They like your organization. You like them. And I think empowering them to share more about your company and trusting them that it doesn't benefit anyone. I think the trust and empowerment of employees, and not recognition of what they bring to the company. They want to see, our employees want to see Verint succeed. And I want them to feel confident and comfortable talking about us as an organization and their experience here. Because for me, that I want to buy from companies where I see their employees talking about how great it is or how much they love it is such a good thing.
Hear, hear. And I know this isn't a live conversation, it's a recording, but I hear the virtual cheers of support and the applause for Verint as a company who has seen the light on this and is really doing a great job of engaging and empowering their employees to use their voices, to build their personal brands, which helps the employees and helps the company as well. It's just such a wonderful story. I think this conversation is really going to do an awesome job of inspiring other companies to follow suit in their own spheres of operation. Celia, how can we, the internal marketing tribe, support you?
Well, just thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed the conversation. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with people. And then certainly follow Verint as well. As much as we talk about customer engagement, we talk about employee engagement too. So there are some great nuggets out there from us.
Awesome. Awesome. So yes, Celia is on LinkedIn. Connect with her there. And Verint is on LinkedIn too, right? The company page. So we can engage with both. And I'm sure anyone who wants to continue this conversation can definitely do so there and get some more awesome nuggets from you and your wider team. Thank you so much, Celia. I really appreciate your time and sharing your story with us, your awesome company that you're a part of. It's just tremendous. And hats off to you guys for what you're doing. And we continue to encourage you to do what you're doing and continue to inspire and motivate other companies to follow suit as well.
Thanks, Kerry-Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Internal Marketing Podcast. I hope you got some great takeaways from this conversation. And if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, then please join the tribe. And don't forget, feel free to share this podcast with anyone whom you believe will find it valuable as well. I'm your host, Kerry-Ann Stimson, and I look forward to your joining me next time.